This video we're going to go over the Marvel Rivals patch notes for season 4.5, and this is going to be dropping on the 10th of October, but we are going to get early access tomorrow evening. So if you do want to see the new hero and all of the changes, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel, as we'll be covering all that good stuff for you tomorrow. But let's get straight into these patch notes. I have read through this already. Some of these changes are actually pretty strange, and I will want to cover them in just a moment, but let's go with the Vanguards first, and these ones are pretty straightforward, right? Angela is getting a slight boost to her sustained firepower or fighting power, and this is when she uses her Divine Judgment, so when she uses the axes and she slams into the ground. Basically, she gains more bonus HP now. She doesn't do any extra damage, she just stays alive a lot longer because she gets more overshield. So now instead of 30 overshield, she gets 40, and then for teammates, it's 20 instead of 15. All in all, a slightly decent change. I knew they weren't going to actually buff her damage values, so this is a pretty decent change nonetheless. I think this is actually okay for Angela, regardless, to keep her in the fight and keep her in a brawl a little bit longer. Then we have Venom's change, and I actually quite like the change for Venom. So the change for Venom here is for his ultimate ability now applies a 30% healing reduction. We're going to be seeing a lot more of this now that they added it in with Blade, and that is going to be lasting 4 seconds after his ultimate. So I think that's pretty solid in terms of Venom's changes. I think small changes like this will make him just a little bit better and put him in a good spot, right? I think Venom's already in a pretty decent spot, but we need to make him just a little bit better. Getting into the Duelist changes, and we've got Blade up first. He got a slight boost to his offensive prowess, which means that he gets an increase to his Daywalker dash, the distance of it, so they've increased it by 2 meters. This is a good change for Blade. It's going to allow him to escape situations, get closer into engagement ranges as well. Overall, just boosting his mobility because he doesn't really have much mobility anyway. And increase the duration of his slash speed attack gained during Bloodline Awakening from 0.7 seconds to 1 second. New effect, landing all 4 hits of Whirlwind Slash grants 1 slash speed stack. That's crazy, actually. That's going to output way more damage when he's brawling. And I think this is a really good change for him right now, because I think when he's in a brawl, he's really not that strong compared to some of the other heroes. And for taking out tanks and stuff, this could be very useful. And especially when we've got other heroes now like Daredevil coming in, and he looks really powerful, by the way. I think Blade would have taken a lot of a backseat, so I think this is a really good change. It's going to allow him to close the gap and not just be like a kind of shotgun shooter, which is what people were using him for. He now is exactly a brawler like he's supposed to be. Moving on into Hela now. So Hela is now getting a slight survivability buff. So when she's using the Astral Flux, this is like her teleport essentially, she gains 25 bonus health after she casts it. A slight decent change. I don't think this is something that people were crying out for massively. I don't think her survivability was terrible anyway either. But overall, a pretty decent change nonetheless. Human Torch is up next, and this guy is definitely going to get a nerf. So reduce the fire cluster damage per hit projectile from 5.5 to 5, and they've been slowly reducing this number just every single season now. Pretty strange, but it is a weird change nonetheless. A new ability, I believe. The fire cluster now has a 0.5 second delay before ammo begins to replenish. That's a bigger hit. The damage hit is not as big because you can just output more, right? But now they've literally blocked you from outputting more by putting a 0.5 second delay on it, as well as the recharge time as well. Bit of a tough one right there. During Plasma Body, reduce movement speed from 900 to 850. Again, that one is a massive hit. Big changes to Human Torch. I think these ones are really going to hurt the hero, right? The last two definitely, because that Plasma Body, being able to kind of get up and get back away, is something that's super important to staying alive. And even though he does gain bonus shields now when they try to kind of buff this ability, now they kind of just remove that buff by removing his movement speed. So it's just a really silly change in my opinion. Doesn't really need to go that hard on him in my opinion, but we'll see how he plays. Next up, we've got Iron Fist. A really weird change here. They keep buffing him and nerfing him constantly, and for the same type of thing as well, which I find just really strange. It's almost as if they can't get a good balance with this guy, and that's what kind of annoys me a little, because I quite like playing Iron Fist. He's actually really fun to play. But regardless, they lowered his damage value, so the fixed damage value, from 9 to 8 of his Yatji Chunken, which is his fast punches essentially. but then they increased the percentage damage from 2.7 to 3.1, which means it's going to be better against tanks, right? That's kind of the whole point in this change in the first place. But different to Wolverine, Iron Fist is not always going to come up against tanks, as much as they do want to make him a tank buster, and he is probably one of the best tank busters in the game. He doesn't always just fight tanks, right? And reducing that fixed damage value is definitely going to hit him as well. So it's something I feel like they've nerfed his mobility in the previous updates, and then they're kind of nerfing slash buffing him, but making him very grounded. I liked it when he was a bit more movement based and just did overall less damage, right? I think that was a better way of balancing this hero. Mr. Fantastic's up next. We're adding more crowd control into this game now, and I expected this, and I said this in the last patch when we got the change to Winter Soldier's uppercut. I expected a lot more CC stuff happening in the game, and we're obviously getting it now with Mr. Fantastic. So after successfully pulling an enemy with distended grip, the target is now afflicted 1 second immobilize effect. So essentially exact same thing with the Winter Soldier uppercut. There's a 1 second delay where you cannot move, you cannot use any mobility tools to escape Mr. Fantastic. I think for Mr. Fantastic, this is actually a good change because he's not all that broken compared to Winter Soldier, who didn't really need this change. Regardless, I think it's going to make him a little bit more effective against these dive heroes now, and obviously there's a lot more dive heroes when Daredevil comes in too, so that's probably the exact reason why they added this in, to counter him almost exactly. This is a perfect counter to Daredevil because he's got a lock-on dive mechanic, and Mr. Fantastic's got a lock-on grapple mechanic, so it's a literal perfect counter, like I said. Phoenix is up next, and this one I really expected to happen anyway, so this one is not out of the ordinary. We've got melee attacks no longer stack sparks, which I don't know why that was a thing in the first place. She was basically one of the best melee heroes in the game without even being a melee hero. So regardless, they removed that, which obviously was something I expected. The primary weapon ammo no longer replenishes during Dark Ascent. This one is a bit of an annoying one in my opinion, because it just means her firepower output is not that powerful. I mean, we'll see how effective that one actually is. And then they've added a new effect where they added a 1 second of cooldown to Dark Ascent. So they've nerfed Dark Ascent almost fully, right? A 1 second cooldown extra, and also you cannot reload your ammo. They should have just left the reload ammo one alone in my opinion, because I think that was a really good thing to have with the Phoenix, but we'll see how that one plays out. I think these changes are pretty decent changes for our overall pretty solid hero anyway. Lastly, we've got Psylocke, and Psylocke got an overall buff to her ultimate where she no longer gets a massive penalty for her movement, and that is going to be reduced basically to half of what it was. So this is going to be a lot more kind of fluid. And then also increase the strike's damage from 150 to 170, which is a good enough buff, by the way, considering the amount of attacks she actually gets in during her ultimate. I actually think this is a really good change and going to make Psylocke feel a lot better. I think they took a lot away from Psylocke in previous updates, especially with all of the rest of her tools in the base kit. But now they've buffed her ultimate, we'll see how she kind of plays now. I think a lot more people will be happy about this change. Next up, we've got the Strategists, and they've essentially nerfed the crap out of that triple support meta with this update. And I don't know if I'm happy to see it or not, but regardless, we'll go through the changes, right? So increase the energy cost of Eternal Bond, and why this is a big deal is that Cloak and Dagger's ultimate was one of the easiest support ultimates to build up in the game, not only because the attacks are auto lock, but also it was lower in terms of energy cost to get as well, right? It was one of the ultimates that are getting popped more frequently. Now it's going to be not so much. So that is one reason Cloak and Dagger's probably going to get run a little bit less than usual. People were using Cloak and Dagger just for the ultimate, by the way. Jeff is now getting a survivability hit, but this is due to his critical headshot damage. So now it's only getting reduced by 50% instead of 70%. They also reduced this previously as well, by the way. I think it was like 80% before. But regardless, now he's going to be able to die a little bit quicker due to headshots, and obviously his head's quite a lot bigger than the rest of the heroes in this game. So that one I don't think is a massive change, but it will hurt Jeff's survivability overall. Then we've got Rocket's ultimate change, and I think Rocket's ultimate is going to be one of the strongest ultimates in the entire game with this change right here. So not only do you get the overshields, now you're getting the damage boost, right, by his ultimate, and it's going from 25% to 40%. Now, damage boosting in this game is on the up, man. I've said this since last update, that damage boosting is going to be so important, especially with the kind of anti-healing effects as well in this game. Damage boosting plus anti-healing is going to be getting you wins in this game, especially in the higher ranks, if you can combo those two mechanics together. And Rocket's ultimate is just a prime example of this, and that's why Mantis is so strong right now. Even though a lot of people don't like playing her because her healing output's not great, it doesn't really matter. That slight damage boost you get constantly is going to help you win fights all the time. And like I said, Rocket gets that added onto his ultimate as well there. Then we've got Ultron, and Ultron is getting a nerf, and obviously we kind of expected this one. So his healing patch is now getting reduced by 35 to 30, and the bonus to the followed ally is 10 to 5. Wow, that is strange, man. Bit of a weird change there. That's the overshield ability, by the way, just so if you didn't know. But overall, that is a bit of a strange change in my opinion, because the Ultron abilities in terms of healing by himself is not great, but in terms of that triple support meta, it does kind of block a lot of attacks. But for Ultron, for the hero by himself, if you're playing only 2 strategists, this is a weird change in my opinion, and I don't really like it, if I'm being honest with you. Increase the energy cost of his ultimate. This one I'm okay with because you can build up his ultimate pretty easily by dealing damage and stuff. So this one I've not really got too much of an issue with. Then we've got the team ups. We've got the Daredevil Punisher team up, and what was not showing off in the gameplay. And this is Daredevil getting a 25 HP increase and a 5% damage boost, which is pretty cool. Namor gets the new ability with the team up with Hela. Obviously, we've got to see a little bit of gameplay of that one. Arcane Order increased the cooldown of Chain Cataract to 15 to 20%. I already knew this was going to come when I seen how good this team up actually was. And the slow effect at maximum range from 60 to 40%. They were going to nerf this team up anyway, man. It was just too quick to get, and it was too good of a team up. Gamma Charge and Black Panther, now Namor no longer has that. Ragnarok Rebirth is completely gone. So there we have it. That is my thoughts on the patch notes. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for all the early access stuff tomorrow. We'll be going over absolutely everything in terms of hero guides and all the new changes. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much for watching.